So after that trip in Colombia, I felt like my motivations had really changed because I'd hit satisfaction with these journeys and stuff. I went through Central America by bus, all through there, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Panama, Costa Rica, Guatemala, and all through there. And I went in Guatemala as well. I went up Fuego, or close to the Fuego volcano, and that erupted about a month or so later, and then 5,000 people died. So another time when something like that happened again. And then I flew to New York to spend a bit of time with my brother who was working there at the time. I think I spent about 2 weeks there. But yeah, it was really a different world for me from then, because this big journey was over. And I wanted to keep going back deeper inside something. And with the Jahe, that told me to go and be with the communities. And so up until now, that's what I've been trying to do, to spend more time with people, because I'm already happy out in nature and there's nothing to fear out there for me. But there's more fear in a community, to communicate with people and stuff and to develop relations and stuff. It's much easier for me to be by myself still, but I should. So this is my journey, like I was talking about, to face the fears. I should, for me, keep going towards those things, to expand myself and to see that life as well. And then so I can have on both sides, fearless in nature, in the wilderness, and fearless among people in society. So for the first time, I went back to Japan, and for the first time I started to go out. I started to say yes to going out in Tokyo, to meet people and to meet random people on the street and stuff. And I did that for a couple of years, really. And then that opened up new worlds as well. And then the pandemic hit and things changed again. And it was lucky that I did all that just in the perfect time, because the pandemic in Japan, that shut people down even more. They were all masked up and no one wanted to talk to anyone, really. And you could just see eyes. And it's already, you don't really talk to random people in Japan so much. It's not a common thing to do. But it was even worse with the pandemic. But in the end, it ended up being one of the freest countries in the world, because by law, no one could stop you going anywhere in the country. So at first, they wanted people to travel around, and there were coupons for people to travel. They were giving them free food and discounts on accommodation and everything was about half the price as well. And it was amazing too, because tourists had started coming in before the pandemic, and then they were gone. And it was like 2002 back again, with hardly any tourists around. And before that, it was just Japanese tourists at the sites too. But just before the pandemic, there were more foreign tourists, international tourists in Japan, and so they disappeared. So some people really liked it, and there was a quietness that came over everywhere again as well. So that was really interesting. But anyway, I went to the US. I went to California for a little bit too, and my friend flew me out there. But before this, I should say I went to Muir Woods with another friend in San Francisco. He took me around there, and he lives on a houseboat, so I visited him. But then another friend flew me out just at the start of the pandemic, and then it was getting serious. And then I flew back to Japan, and he was living in Japan at the time too, an American friend. And I went back, and then he got the next flight back the next day, and then they shut everything down. You couldn't even get into Japan, in or out of Japan after that. So that was pretty lucky. And then shut down, and then I couldn't get back to Australia either. My passport wouldn't work, they wouldn't let me in. So I missed that window as well. And my brother, who was working in New York, he had to go back to Australia as well, because they booted him out of his job, and he made it back just in time. But I was effectively trapped in Japan, but that was fine anyway. I was happy there. And so it was, again, a time to explore. And so I jumped on my bike, my push bike, that is, bicycle, and I rode from Tokyo to Aomori, which is at the top end of Honshu, the main island there. I think it was about 800 kilometres. And at one point I rode for about 27 hours without sleep. And I saw a bear as well on the side of the road at one point, and fell off the bike a couple of times. I went flying over the handlebars but landed on my feet, luckily. But that was an incredible trip, and to arrive in Aomori as well from Tokyo, it was again surreal to do that, to know that I pedalled all the way and must have passed, I had 2,000 trucks pass me as well, because it was on one of the main highways and there isn't much room for a bike. I popped a tyre right near the end too, but that was okay, just fixed it and then kept on going. Just going to get rid of this spider here. And then after that I went across to Hokkaido and went up the highest mountain there and explored around a bit there and stayed in Sapporo, and then went back down to Tokyo, sent my bike back there, and I stayed in Fukuoka for about a month and Osaka for about a month as well, and all these different places for about a month just to see what they were like. There's a mountain called Rokkosan near Osaka in Kobe, and I ran up and down that as well, went up that multiple times, and I found myself going to it as well rather than being in the city too. Even though I was still trying to talk to people in the city, I ended up being in nature again, I found. So still attracted more to nature. And then back in Tokyo, and then I went up into Matsumoto for a month as well, which is in Nagano. I rode up my bike up there again too, and that was amazing. Then I left it there and parked it, and then I went to Hakuba, and because there were no workers around really, so there was a lodge and they were looking for people to help out, so I stayed there for 3 months, snowboarding every day. And again, a once in a lifetime experience, because I had lift tickets and I had time as well when I wasn't helping out at the hotel, making breakfast and beds and cleaning and all the rest of it, running it a bit. Then I had a snowboard and stuff and the tickets, and so I went up for first run a few times when there was fresh powder. No one there. Normally there can be lines of 200 or 300 people waiting for the lifts, and these are Australians and Chinese people and people from other countries, but probably mostly Australians and Chinese people. And so you might get, I don't know how many, 4 runs a day or something like that, but there was no one there, so I would go and do a run and then slide straight back in and go straight onto the lift, and I'd rest in the time that I was going up. That was my only time to rest. And I didn't have very thick clothes either, but I didn't need them because I was using so much energy. I don't know how many runs I got, and then I started to go into the forest as well and realised that I could enter the forest at the top of the run and then just go down through the forest. And it was amazing because it's powdered snow. I'd never been on powdered snow before like that, and I had total control. And so I went through the forests and then up banks and then down creeks, it turned out as well, and off little waterfalls and stuff that were totally frozen. And it was amazing. 3 months of that. 3 months of this totally unique experience that will never happen again. Really doubtful that it will happen again. Well, especially in my lifetime. It won't happen again. There's always going to be crowds there, and even more crowds these days. So it would hardly be worth me going back. And I got more than a lifetime snowboarding in, for sure. I don't know how many runs I did per day. There's 50 or 100 runs a day. So if you work that out, that's like 20 or 30. It's probably 20 or 30 years worth of snowboarding that I did for a normal season in that area, because Hakuba is really popular as well. So it really is, you really are going to run into those lines from anywhere from 50 to 200 people, I don't know, just waiting around most of the time, like in Disneyland or something. But there was no one there. And like I said, I got first run a few times too, so that was incredible. And then I took off from there, went back to down to Tokyo, and then back to Colombia again, because during the pandemic I could actually get to Colombia. It was one of the few places I could go. I just needed to have the vaccinations. I could go while I couldn't get to Australia. And I came here with my friend who I'm living with now, and we walked up to 4,500 metres here, up to some different peaks, and then ran back down, and then we went through another section, and there's the lost city, Ciudad Perdida, Tayuna. But there's also another place, a similar place that's on this side, and they're connected, but no one goes there. It's only for archaeologists usually. They're the only ones who can go into that site. But it's a very similar site in this whole valley, up the end of this valley. And so we went there. It's called Ciudad Antigua. And we went there, and it was just the two of us and the caretakers there. There's two people who were caretakers, and they had a little restaurant for the archaeologists when they came, and then all the beds there and stuff. And we spent the night there alone, and I was just lying back looking at it all, and it was incredible, an incredible experience, really unique. And now you can't even go there because I think they've shut it down, because they don't even have archaeologists in there at the moment.